Provincial Grand Chapter of Staffordshire. Ask the Grand Superintendent. Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Ask the Grand Superintendent. This animated podcast invites you to ask questions of the Grand Superintendent for the Provincial Grand Chapter of Staffordshire. Hello, most excellent Grand Superintendent. Welcome back again this month.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's good to be back.
Our first question this month asks, how many Royal Arch members and chapters are there in the province?
Okay, so I'll run through a few statistics for you. We have a total of 37 chapters in the province, which includes the Staffordshire First Principles chapter. We did have 38 chapters at this point last year, but since then, unfortunately, the members of Regis Lewisham chapter, after exploring all options, sadly determined that they were no longer sustainable. At the end of January, we had 829 members, which represents almost 40% of craft masons in the province.
Next up, here's a classic. It reads, they told me that Freemasonry will only be 6 nights a year. Am I about to be duped again if I join the Royal Arch?
This is a great question, as it's vitally important to understand the commitment that you'll be making if you join any order. Chapters generally meet just 3 or 4 times a year, so much less often than your craft lodge, with the consequent reduction in membership fees, of course. Your commitment will increase if you take a progressive office, as, similar to your lodge, you'll need to attend any rehearsals in order to practice your part in the ceremonies.
Question 3 reads, I've heard that you have to be a Royal Arch Freemason before you can join any other order. Is that true, most excellent Grand Superintendent?
No. This only applies if you wish to join a Masonic order or degree for which membership of the Royal Arch is a qualifying requirement, for example Knights Templar. In some cases there are additional entry requirements. If you search Wikipedia for Masonic appendant bodies, you'll find a chart depicting the most common orders with any associated or additional qualifying criteria.
Advice indeed. So, here we are with the 4th question, which is, what advice would you give to a relatively new member of Freemasonry on joining different orders?
I covered this partially in January's podcast, that is, to take your time and be very careful not to overcommit yourself. There's no need to rush.
Now this one is very topical. It reads, themed lodges seem to be very popular in the craft. Does the Grand Superintendent encourage this trend in the Royal Arch?
I don't have a problem with this in theory, but it mustn't be at the expense of an existing chapter failing. I'd far rather we support a chapter at risk and maintain its rich history than consecrate a new one in its place. An example of where this approach is starting to bear fruit is at Burslem chapter, where active member numbers were falling to worryingly low levels, but joining motorcycling enthusiasts, the Widow's Sons, are starting to contribute to the future growth and stability of this excellent 109-year-old chapter.
And finally, for this month, here is the question. It reads, I've heard that the Craft and Royal Arch annual meetings are to be held on the same day this year. Why is this occurring and how will it work?
Given our unique partnership and special relationship with the craft, this is something that I've been exploring with the Provincial Grandmaster since I was appointed. The driving factor for a trial implementation this year has of course been COVID-19 and the disrupting impact that it's had on our forward planning. Therefore 2021 seems to be the optimum time to come together, share resources and trim the costs of these annual events to our respective administrations and members. As to how it will work, well, subject to any COVID restrictions at the time, we plan to meet on the 20th of July. The annual convocation of Provincial Grand Chapter will take place late morning, with a joint lunch booked for 2 p.m, and the annual meeting of Provincial Grand Lodge will follow afterwards. On this occasion, the lunch itself will follow a Royal Arch format, but all brethren of the province and their guests, whether Royal Arch Masons or not, are eligible to attend and will be very warmly welcomed.
Well, that wraps it up again for this month. Thank you very much indeed, most excellent Grand Superintendent, for coming to visit us, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. And if you have any questions that you would like the Grand Superintendent to answer, please email them to the Communications Officer, details on screen. Staffordshire Royal Arch Masonry, simply completing your Masonic knowledge.